The Last of Us makes for good TV, but a tough watch after a real pandemic, says Kotaku.
Okay, I will
Kotaku.
admit, in the first
Kotaku's the
cold
worst.
open for The Last of Us, I did feel like they were kind of referencing COVID stuff.
Yep.
Like in a way.
Oh yeah, they
that's,
were.
Yeah, but it didn't really land because I never took it seriously.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just because like if you were more informed, like if you knew it was coming before it happened. Like was it last time were we talking about like Styx Hexenhammer was talking about it like a month or two before it even made it to America. So it's like you knew this was coming. Like I don't think anybody really predicted the toilet paper shortage per se, but they knew that this was coming, right? So and if you're already predisposed to question whether the media is actually telling you the truth. It's why I gave a lot of leeway to a lot of people, why they were had the bejesus scared out of them by everything. But the author of this article is barely saying, it says, I'm barely a minute into the premiere of the episode of HBO's TV treatment for The Last of Us, and I'm already uncomfortable. No one has died yet, and no one's speaking in cringeworthy Texas accents. I can't tell if they're saying because other accents are cringy or because they just don't like people from Texas.
Because they hate Southern people.
No one's died yet. No one's speaking in a cringeworthy Texas accent. But as two experts chat about the threats to human society from airborne illnesses, I realized that I'm not quite sure if I'm in the mood for this kind of fiction. The first thing this reminded me of...
Who wrote this?
The first thing that this reminded me of, guys, I still remember... years before I worked here, reading an article from either the Mary Sue or Kotaku reviewing House of Cards, and they make a big deal like, this show was fun in the Obama administration. It's not so fun in the Trumpian era of politics. Like the idea like corruption can be fun to watch as long as you trust the corrupt people in charge.
No, your ability to enjoy television was actually degraded because... you have mentally deteriorated with your obsession over politics.
I was just going to say, how about stop watching TV if you're that uncomfortable?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like if there's stuff that bothers me, I just don't watch it.
What's rich to me is a journalist of all people complaining about the trauma of COVID and lockdowns when it was journalists who, in large part, wanted to enforce those regulations that kept us locked down, that are still keeping us locked down.
The comment section on this article is all people saying Biden's not going far enough with the COVID restrictions.
Right. So it's exactly the people that inflict these things that are now talking about their trauma. Like, what about the trauma of the people who are unwillingly locked up?
Right.
Yep, and they talk about as the first episode moves on, building up to the death of the main character's daughter, an eventual 20-year flash forward, I found myself in a state of anxiety, remembering all the fear and uncertainty of COVID, particular in the early days of 2020, both the virus and the United States government's criminally fraught response.
This part is crazy. I dreaded watching an amplified mirror image rendition of our world slip into the chaos of a public health crisis mismanaged. Mismanaged is right, but not the same way you're talking about it.
I was just going to say.
I recognize that not everyone will make these types of associations, but given the world-changing gravity of the pandemic, it's hard for me not to go there.
So this person, Claire Jackson, she really thinks that we were that close. Like, you guys watched the episode, right?
Yeah, she thought the world, like we were about to end the enter the end
like
times.
It reminded me of like reminded me of Red Dawn, when you had like the rebels and like fighting back and like little skirmishes in the streets.
I wonder if it
she
affects
thinks
her.
that's gonna happen. She thinks that's what she lived through. And remember,
There are like planes crashing in the sky.
And her conclusion to all of this is, you're the problem. You're the problem, right? You guys didn't wash your hands well enough. You didn't wear your mask. It's not the over-oppressive government deploying all their soldiers to keep you locked inside your quarantine zone.
Yes,
right?
more of all of that. It's also funny. I'm like, I wonder if like I talk a lot about how like before I did this job, I would have a little bit of trouble watching new stuff from actors if they were particularly annoying on Twitter. I've kind of like that injury is kind of calloused over now. I can watch just about anything. I don't really care. You could be the biggest. Like I can watch Alec Baldwin in 30 Rock and still enjoy 30 Rock.
You're a bigger man than I am.
Even if Alec Baldwin is a sociopath that I can't stand, I can still enjoy it. But I wonder if she can retroactively go back and watch The Walking Dead.
Or
does that bother her?
What was the one with the actual pandemic that took over the world? It was like the movie's about them trying to find the cure.
Contagion.
Contagion.
Contagion
I bet
was
that's
good
like
with
a
Gwyneth
horror
Paltrow.
movie for her.
Right.
I mean, I just find it ironic because in The Last of Us, you see Joel now 20 years after the initial outbreak living in a military dictatorship, and you see that, like, even if society itself collapses, you will still have authoritarians who are trying to control people. And that's an inescapable folly of humanity. And that's what should make you scared when you watch the show. Yep. Not the mismanagement of a pandemic that, you know, we weren't locked down enough.
There weren't enough twerking nurses on TikTok. There were no twerking nurses. Like, if we had just had...
There weren't enough pointless Zoom meetings and...
Like
my N95 isn't tight enough.
Well, she likely wrote this article with an N95 on.
Yeah.
Like, it's very likely.
In her car alone.
In her car.
Yeah, this seems like there's a lack of oxygen to her brain.
Definitely.
For a lot of these
Well,
things
it is quite sad, but the pandemic very much did create an entire generation of agoraphobes.
Oh yeah,
you know,
or it's already made it worse.
Their fear is very real, which is as ridiculous as it sounds. It's tragic that they
it's
feel
a phobia.
this way.
It's an actual phobia.
In the chat, they're mentioning 12 Monkeys. Yes, 12 Monkeys, and 12 Monkeys was a very underrated TV adaptation. Of all the things that you could make into a movie, Amanda Schull in that, and I always forget that actor's name, but he's like, I talk about him because he's the least likely leading. It's Aaron Stanford. He's like, he kind of gets leading roles, but he's kind of a dork. He doesn't look like a leading man. He looks like the sidekick, but he kind of always comes out in better roles. So the 12 Monkeys TV show is actually not that bad. It was a sci-fi show.
I think that post-apocalyptic stories in movies and TV are popular right now because we have a lot of anxiety about are we living in a precarious situation ourselves, and like the upcoming scarcities of a recession, and just like our insecurities about living in this fragile thing that is like the first world in modernity, you know? Like, but these people writing articles like this are so isolated from any actual problems. Like, they are living in complete comfort. They are catered to. They get all of their food delivered right to their door. And they think that the food originates right there on the shelves of a grocery store.
It's just literally
spawns.
there.
It just spawns, guys.
But like
the Uber driver just ends up in the Uber driver's car as he's driving it to their house.
They just, spawn into reality perfectly just for you. But when you see any other death or crime or war or real suffering portrayed on TV, they watch that and they don't say, wow, I'm reminded of all of the death and the war and the bloodshed in the real world, because they don't encounter any of it. Yeah. So they're fine with that being portrayed.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's and a lot of it's probably a lot of media. They've watched a lot of media. Like somebody mentioned The Last Ship. The Last Ship was a really good show. Adam Baldwin, not Alec Baldwin, the far better Baldwin. And not related Baldwin, not related to not related to the other Baldwins. The other Baldwins also, like the one, is it William Baldwin? I don't know what his name is, but he's a lot skinnier than Alec Baldwin. Looks like a weasel.
Alec Baldwin is best known for being Haley Baldwin's uncle.
Yes. when we did our video on Haley Baldwin and the Nepo baby thing, I labeled the video "Alec Baldwin's niece doesn't like being a Nepo baby" because I'm petty.
I loved it. I love your petty side.
What if she does the Trump impressions for SNL because he's locked up?
That would be
good. In the blood.
And it's not just they're sectored off from the rest of the world because they do it to themselves, because they all live in the same part of California.
Right.
Or New York.
Or New York or California.
They all live in Calabasas.
I don't. The journalists don't live in Calabasas.
No,
they're making
the
money, but they're not making Calabasas money.
That's very true.
They're living.
I thought you were referring to Alec Baldwin.
No. I'm talking about the journalists. Like the journalists are all part of their elite class, and they're talking themselves into a fervor because they're in their Slack chats, they're in their Facebook groups or whatever. Like they don't use Facebook.
They call each other folks with an X at the end.
Yeah. And they say y'all, and they start with y'all because it gets everyone's attention.
I want to know.
I thought y'all was like a racist term for everybody. I thought,
they trash Southern people and then use their lingo.
Right, and then
that's cultural appropriation.
Folks and y'all.
They wear the cowboy hats and the boots and everything like that, and they want to have this whole like 1850s aesthetic, but they don't want to have any of the 1850s social connotations. So.
I want to know, why do you guys think that post-apocalyptic content is so popular in media right now?
Because the world's ending.
Is it?
No,
Be in fear.
it's been. I mean, post-apocalyptic
popular.
and dystopian media has been popular long before
I was
the
just gonna
world
say,
cracked open in
I
2016.
feel like
Yeah, true.
it kind of slowed down when the pandemic hit. Like Black Mirror canceled
It was
its
too
show
real.
because they were like, it's really happening.
Like
too
even
real,
when I
yeah.
see zombies,
That
I'm
was
just like,
gay.
zombies? We're still doing
dumb.
zombies,
Yeah,
huh?
right.
We're still doing zombies? That's
That's the
Well,
craziest thing about this. Is like it's like I know the game like tangentially. It's about like zombies, right?
It's a fungal.
Yeah,
type
fungal
of-
infection, zombies, etc. And I understand the very beginning of the pandemic. I was also nervous about everything. I was like, oh, we don't know what this is going to be like. It could end up being like Ebola, which is named after the Ebola River Valley in Congo, which people don't seem to remember. It's not just a name of a virus, which is what we do with viruses. We name them after a particular place. So I call it Wu Flu.
not anymore.
Yeah,
It's
not
racist.
anymore. Now you can't say that because it's racist. But I just don't understand why everyone was. We've since learned it's not that. I've had the thing. I've survived, guys.
Yep.
I'm not a zombie. Like it's not. I don't understand the relation to this, and the fact that you're relating it to this is like it's
because
wild to me.
the breakdown, the disconnect is the critical thinking. People are
Yeah.
people are
Doesn't
recognizing the phenomenon that is.
Woo!
Oh,
Thank
whoa.
you.
Is this a new one?
Yeah, it's a new one.
Nice.
Is that's John
Does
McClane?
need to be louder.
I turned it down earlier.
That's McClane.
Why'd you
right?
do that?
That's Die Hard.
Because Tim was recording and I didn't want it. When I reset it, I didn't want it to.
Oh, you could just be me and walk in
Yeah.
on accident
Yeah.
and then suddenly close the door.
Welcome to the party, pal.
But yeah,
What you should do when you open the door is be like, "Are you okay?"
You sound stressed.
everything okay in
You
here,
sound
Tim?
stressed.
Sorry, but you were saying, Kellen.
no, people are recognizing the very real phenomenon that is encroaching oppressive power. You know, government gets thrown around all the time, but any group that's trying to be oppressive is problematic. And so people are recognizing that. Like, oh my God, there are large amounts of people trying to control what I do or say, but then they can't come to the right.
Yeah.
They come to an absurd conclusion that is, I'm the problem. Wait, you guys, we're all the problem because we're not doing X, Y, and Z.
My other problem with this is like they say it's a tough watch, but it's a relevant watch because it speaks to our real world. Shut up!
No,
it
it's
doesn't
not.
speak to our real world experience. It's a story, you dork.
Yeah.
Like it's one of these things where they always it's kind of the idea of the fake deep stuff that they love. They love the idea of like media that reflects our current society, or
I'm
it's
so tired of that.
it's speaking truth to power. Like literally, as you repeat every mainstream slogan that's ever been said in the
Right.
history of the
I mean,
world.
in any zombie themed post-apocalyptic movie or TV show, the real adversary is always the other survivors.
Yes, it's never
not
the actual-
zombies.
the zombies
The
are never
zombies are
the-
a backdrop to the
Yeah.
human conflict, which is what you're supposed to pay attention to when you watch The Last of Us.
Well,
it's a struggle of human power.
It's the same problem with The Walking Dead, right? Every year it was the same complaint.
That- I
Not
was
enough
just
zombies,
gonna push
way
back.
too much human drama back
There's
and
that
forth.
one guy
So-
like Negan or whatever
Yeah.
his name was.
Well,
Yeah.
so The Walking Dead, it maybe went on for too long. I think it was like 10 seasons, 11 seasons. They just announced the
Seriously?
conclusion.
Wow.
Yeah. I think it had a fantastic arc that made sense. The first 2-3 seasons
Yeah.
were dominated by the survivors just getting wrecked by zombies. By the 5th, 6th, 7th season, they've built communities. They're like, hey, if we just like group together and build a 10-foot wall, the zombies can't get to us.
Yeah.
And that's where
Whoa,
they
no
introduced the
way.
other humans, because it truly
Wall.
does. So it's like an evolution of human. It was
Yeah.
kind of the theme,
Conflict.
coming from cave men to actual functioning society.
He's talking about the season where the one I played you the other day, Game of Thrones. The Walking Dead season 6 Comic-Con trailer is one of my favorite trailers of all time to the song Arsonist Lullaby. And there's this amazing line that I will remember forever as being the worst delivered line that I've ever heard in a trailer. And I've heard a lot of really bad ones, but it's this girl. She's like on the steps. She's like, this is our reality now. He's like, we have to fight because if we don't, we die. It's just so badly
And
delivered.
we were just listening to
I
the
didn't see
trailer
that.
for
Yeah.
the Netflix 2023 lineup of
Yeah.
movies,
And there's-
and one of the lines was, "Something is happening, and I don't trust them."
I don't trust them. And
I
it's
don't trust
like
them.
literally you can see the other actors like I don't believe a word this lady's saying. Like
Gotta get that paycheck. Gotta get that paycheck.
It's really funny. Like it's one of my favorite things in movies. This is kind of an aside. Is I love going through trailers and listening to them stitch together lines that are not together. Like that
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
like they
that's
never
great.
say it in the thing.
great.
There's in the season 10 trailer of the X-Files. they have a thing where they tee up in the beginning because they kind of turned it into like a spy and subversion, a government subversion thing, more than just aliens. Yeah. And there's a couple of really funny ones where like Mulder's like they're trying to have Mulder introduce Scully. He's like, I can't do it alone. Like it's like 4 different like.
You know who loves to do that is FX. FX does those little commercials like FX has the movie.
Totally. Yeah.
And it's a whole bunch of stuff that aren't real scenes. It's just stitched together nonsense.
And like earlier in that, like the guy's like, that government spent hunting for like 50 years. And I'm just like, I'm watching, I'm just like giggling. And someone's like, what's fun? I'm like, you wouldn't get it. Like, it's like the things that amuse me wouldn't amuse you, I'm sure. They try
and make it sound like plausible because they adjust the reverb in the room and everything like that to make it sound like it works. But the problem is if one scene is someone yelling versus someone talking or like whispering,
or if you have headphones on. Like if you're listening with headphones, you can hear the pop right.
You can
right
definitely
away.
tell. Yeah.
But I love stuff like I have like a whole playlist on my YouTube that's all just trailers. Like I love catching this stuff in trailers because now remember we talked recently about how they can't false advertise in trailers anymore. They're gonna get in trouble. Those guys sued Paramount or whatever for $5 million because Ana de Armas didn't appear in their movie. Now they're like, Mulder didn't say that in that episode of the X-Files. I want $5 million.
Yeah.
I want that.
They also show different things in like on the last episode flashbacks.
Yeah.
Than are actually in those episodes.
Yep.
I always found that bizarre.
Can't do that anymore. So yeah, I just think like it kind of speaks to the fact that we really do now, depending on where you get your media, depending on how much you trust government, state-run media, all this stuff, you really are living in a completely different world than the person you're walking down the street next to. Yeah, and this is a very, very extreme example of that, where you're like, really? Like maybe if this had come out in 2021. Maybe I could kind of, sort of, maybe I'd still make fun of you for it, but I could understand the panic. But we're like years on now. Well, like this isn't the box office anymore, where they're still blaming the pandemic for bad box office numbers.
Well, the box, like there is no social square anymore. Like the social square is online, and online and it's tribal.
Public square?
And it's algorithmically based.
Social square, public square, right? There's not people going to an actual movie theater anymore and standing outside for a premiere, waiting in line for tickets and talking about what they might think based on the trailer. That's not happening.
You ever see those old videos of like kids lined up for days outside of like Best Buy to get like an Xbox or like an N64 back in the day?
That doesn't happen
like,
anymore.
You don't really see that.
That was amazing. I know.
I mean, I don't know if that was much better than what we have now.
It was totally better.
It was awesome.
Dude, consumerist identity.
In school, we'd totally be jealous of the kid. We're like, oh, he's not in school today. He's waiting in line. He's in Best Buy, right? He's getting the new PlayStation. Yeah.
He's not feeling well today.
Yeah. I was like, oh, dude, his parents are awesome.
It's like when people say, oh, the 90s were so much better.
And
they were better, but we were already on a very quick
trajectory
path to decline. Like there was no way that something like the 90s could have existed for more than a decade.
So really it was our fault for not appreciating it while we had it. And
I didn't have it, but
a lot of that is more like the world was just less connected. Yeah, so realistically, a lot of the same, those people that disagree with you, that make the world feel awful to you, still existed. They just weren't able to text you and send you a message on social media telling you why you're awful.
I've also thought about this a lot too. And whenever cultures are introduced to each other for the first time, there's a clash. Yeah. And I don't mean a physical fight, but there's always bumps and bruises and obstacles that you have to overcome before ultimately a new culture or an updated culture is born from it. And the internet, for a while, when we first started talking to everyone from all different parts of the planet, that didn't quite happen, didn't quite set in because the internet was still new. We were still trying to figure it all out. Mm-hmm. Now we're at the point where we're just getting cultures clashing left and right. People are having these heated online debates online, on Twitter, on Instagram, where they think this is real life with people they would have never seen or interacted with without the internet.
It's like you never would have interacted with them before.
Yeah, and it's like their morals, like they cannot agree. They cannot come to a common conclusion or a common answer.
Thank you, guys.
Because they're so vastly different. And I think that seeps into everything, like especially into movies and shows and
Guys,
everything.
You ever heard the song April 26, 1992
Oh,
by
I
Sublime?
love that song.
The culture wasn't that different. I mean, it was, but if you listen to the song April 26, 1992 by Sublime, there's a lot of the same cultural conflict in that song that we're experiencing now, just from a different time and from an artistic perspective.
But now what we have is that song is posted on an online platform where everyone's arguing in the comments.
Oh man, there's a
people are
YouTube,
getting inspired. Like
there's a YouTube video up right now, like that's been up for years, where you have to it's like age restricted, where it's that song and it's instead of a music video, it's footage of the LA riots.
Oh, really?
So the song April 26, 1992 is a song about the Rodney King riots that were going on. And the whole video is cut together with actual like handy cam footage of various people rioting and going through, like, there's police brutality, there's people destroying businesses. It's really, really like, it's kind of like moving in a way. I don't know if it was meant to be that way, but it's kind of a snapshot in time of what was going on. The reality is that now there is no like united culture the way it would have felt in the 90s. So this journalist just lives in a different world, and therefore watching The Last of Us is traumatizing. It's traumatizing. Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.